Welcome. I want to talk about all great things AI can do with respect to accessibility. So let's just start right into it. I first set a bit of a context, uh, starting with what's accessibility, or try to define it. And instead of asking GPT, I try to look up the definition on dictionaries. I think that's probably the most official one. Essentially, it means designing your product, services, or even your physical environment so that it is accessible to essentially everyone. Or in maybe more, the right term will be that it's not exclusionary based on any sort of conditions, be it some sort of physical limitations or virtual or anything like that. It's very easy to sort of visualize it in your physical environment. So if you walk outside somewhere, all your ramps, lifts, everything like that, that's all designed from accessibility in mind. And if it's done well, then what you will notice is it's sort of not visible. It seamlessly sort of merges into the environment, and you don't like notice it that it's coming out. So, for example, you have some good examples where the ramps are built into this nice structure where people can use that or can use stairs or everything other things as well. You have these sort of curve cuts so that you can transition from a bit of a high surface to a low surface on the road. It's not like if you're carrying a suitcase or you're carrying a stroller or something like that, you can smoothly transition from one and another. And there are also some really bad examples. So if you see, it's nice, ramp is there, but I think you have to be probably a very brave person to take that. Uh, yeah, you have something which is designed well, built well, but somewhere it went wrong in the implementation where it's sort of a catch-22 situation. Now this physical world is also replicated into, let's say, our world. By our world, I mean everything that has to do with apps, websites, documents, everything that you do on a screen. So there are some really good websites out there. For example, BBC. I, I'll say nothing about the content. People have different opinions about that. But if you look at their website, it has really the right color contrast. For every images, there are some good alt text behind it. So if you are using any sort of software to read it because of visual impairment or anything like that, you can actually follow the content. Even in our Netherlands, the Rijksoverheid website, it's quite well designed. It's sort of, if you try to check it with any sort of accessibility softwares, it scores very highly. But then there's also bad examples. So I came across this website where just navigating it, even with all sort of your without any disabilities is challenge, let alone with accessibility, it's even difficult. There are some examples which I see a lot on e-commerce websites where you have some sort of review or some sort of text embedded in an image. And if you look at most of the time that all text, so that's basically the text which a software can read, there's nothing there. So this information does not translate if anyone using a screen reader, and also these images do not like zoom well. So if you zoom, either the text will remain at the same size or it will get blurry and so on. So that's a very common example on the e-commerce sites. So this is like a bit of a what can be done well and what is like not so well. Now if we look at what are the different type of disabilities, it's hard to sort of make a, let's say, comprehensive list, but largely they are defined into 4 or 5 categories, starting with vision. If you read any sort of academic report on this, generally the vision is the one which is the most prevalent in the society. It's like a common saying is, if there is one accessibility that you must take care or you should take care, then do it for the vision, because that covers almost 80% of disability. And this is also on a spectrum, so you can have people who are cannot see at all to color blindness, partial vision, all that. Then you have the cognitive disability, which is essentially people with autism, some sort of dyslexia. That's also a bit hard to recognize because most of the time it's not physically apparent. Then you have speech related, which essentially means a person is making sounds which is not recognizable by either other persons or a software. The hearing impairment, that's the auditory one, and the last one is any sort of motor impairment. So that's like people using wheelchairs or clutches or having some sort of injury which is restricting movement of their muscles. Now, with this, if we try to understand why it matters, essentially, right? It's what's like, why are we even talking about this? So a lot of times we think these disabilities as a permanent ones. So we those use cases sort of comes out in our head, which essentially means someone is cannot see at all, or someone is all the time on a wheelchair, or cannot communicate, that sort of things. That's a category. It's not like very you see like a lot of examples. So for example, here you have I think 800 people, but it's not like you see a lot of people walking in wheelchairs or something like that. But there are a couple of other categories as well, which is basically the temporary disabilities, and temporary because of some sort of problem or issues. At that moment, you don't have that sense available to you. So if you have infection, ear infection, then you cannot hear it properly, or you had some sort of eye operations. Well, that limits your vision at that moment. And then you also have a much bigger category of situational ones. So that means, let's say if you're driving your auto, you shouldn't read. I mean, I guess you can read, but at least you shouldn't. So that's not a disability, but at least at that moment, there is a situation which limits your ability. If you are in a really crowded environment, maybe you cannot hear things properly. And if we try to combine all these categories, then together we come up across 20% of the population. So that's essentially 1 in 5 which are in one of these categories, and that's quite a big number. So the story I try to tell, or my point is, we should not think accessibility just from some sort of moral obligation or some sort of nice to do things. It is actually a good business case. The marketing value that you get, that's separate, but also the users that you can target with having good accessibility built in your products, that is a sort of a good business case in itself. Then we try to look at what has been done in this area so far. The title of the topic focuses on AI, but the accessibility things were before AI. It sort of started as soon as the web was invented. I think there is a line from the persons who invented web is, web should be accessible to everyone. It should not have any sort of discrimination. So we have this web content accessibility guidelines. They basically set up all the rules and guidelines which you can try to build in your product to make your content accessible. And essentially it has like 4 principles where if you have anything digital, it has to follow these 4 principles, and that will make sure that it's accessible, which is basically perceivable. So whatever content you have, it should be perceived at least by one senses of a person. So if someone cannot see it, they should be able to read it. If someone cannot read it, they should be able to hear it via a software or something like that. Then the O is sort of operable, so you should be able to navigate the content. What that means is, for example, for websites, it should be keyboard navigation should be possible. It's not that you always need like a mouse or something to navigate it. It has to be understandable, so that means the language that you use should, let's say, it should be plain English, or it should be in a way where a lot of people can understand it. And then it has to be robust. So what that means is, because you see the technology changes really fast, so it has to keep up pace with that. It's not like something you designed maybe in 2020 and it no longer works with the latest Chrome version or whatever. So that also has to keep updating it. These are the guidelines and the rules, and on basis of this there are a number of accessible technologies that have been invented in past, starting with the closed captioning. So I think at least I use it. I feel a lot of people use it. If you, especially on YouTube, if you watch any videos, you have the option of closed captioning, and this is like basically a description of the video. So not only the text or the script of the video, but also the other things that happening in the video, like something happening in the background. It will try to describe that. Now, one of the property of a good accessible technology is it's not only designed or useful for people with disabilities, but it's useful for everyone essentially. And at least I feel like this closed caption, it's not like only used by people with hearing issues, but a lot of times a lot of other people also use it, because it's very easy to then understand the content. Sometimes that audio is there, but audio is not clear, or it's sort of spoken in a manner where you don't really get the nuance of it. Then you also have like the screen reader softwares we talked about earlier. This is basically something which will read whatever is happening on the screen. I think all the major companies like Microsoft has one, even your Android, Apple, they have something. There's one limitation of this. It relies heavily on content designed well. So we are talking about the image description or the alt text. If let's say your website or on your app you have sort of an image, and if there is not a good description provided to it, then the screen reader can't really help that. Then it will either try to read it or skip it, and that means then the user will not really get the context. You also have a lot of the voice assistant type of technologies, so all your smart speakers or your Hey Google and Siri and all that. I think the Siri is maybe not so smart, but others at least. So if we think about, let's say you just want to check, I don't know, the weather or your trains or public transport timings and all, and if anyone has like a issue with typing, then it becomes such a big task. But instead of that, if you can just ask an app or a piece of software, that makes it much more easy for them to access it. So the voice assistants help a lot. Now these are working to an extent without AI, but then we want to look at what's the role of AI in all this. If I want to describe how really AI made a difference, I like to think of it as a democratization of technology. So what essentially means is, some of the things which were of course possible before AI, but they were maybe too time consuming, or they were like not so easy to implement. So if you think about, especially if you use YouTube maybe before 2020 or in past, the captions were there, but they were really way off. So if it's like somewhere 30-40% of the context only you will get it. They had some sort of let's say software which is just trying to read the words trained on some very specific type of English accent or other language accent, so it wasn't really able to capture all that. But with AI, these type of things become a lot easier. Most of the popular ones have all these sort of softwares to recognize really a variety of accents, really a variety of languages, so that can make it much more simpler. And a lot of times the implementation is like making an API call. So it's not like you have to invest a lot to actually implement it. And generally the cost wise also it's relatively effective. If you look at some of the implementation of this is a sort of an image recognition software. Before AI, I think, at least in my opinion, it would have been very difficult, if not impossible, to make something which can really recognize really a wide variety of images. But with AI, that's quite easy, and it's not not only, let's say, going to help with your self-driving cars, but also It can read menus or it can read signs. So a person with any sort of vision issues can navigate much more safely and in a much more easy manner. Your speech recognition. So the voice assistant, if we can build speech recognition in that, then it's not only you can access generic things, but you can also access things which need some sort of security. So you can actually recognize the person who is speaking, and then you can customize the content based on that person. You also have basically the text to speech and speech to text. So these are, at least in my opinion, really important and really good accessible technologies, because a lot of times it's much easier to speak and it's much easier to listen. So for example, if you are driving your car, if you can read or if you can listen instead of reading, that makes it much more accessible. If you have to sort of type a lot of things, instead of that, if you can just speak, well, that makes it much more simpler. So this text to speech, I think AI has really helped a lot in that one. Oh, I hope my mic doesn't fall off. No. So, and with this, I want to look at some of the implementations that are available. This was focusing a bit more on Microsoft, but you also have these examples with other companies as well. So if you look at, for example, Microsoft Teams, we all use it. Especially for me, I come from India. I think I speak reasonably well Dutch, or at least in my head, I think that, maybe others not. But with Teams, it really helps me with language accessibility, because if I have a call where my colleagues, they don't mind speaking English, I think, but they also prefer to speak Dutch. That's always better. So I understand like 70-80% of this, but then I can have the captions and the translations right away. So whatever small portion I miss, I can read from there. I also have the transcripts to refer to it. So this type of technology, which is, and of course it's designed with accessibility in mind, so people having hearing issues, they can follow. But also it's good for others as well. Very simple features, the hand raise feature. I think they implemented it a couple of years back, something like that. That provides a very nice structure to the team. If you are a person with some sort of autism who likes a bit more structure, finds it difficult to interrupt, well, there is the hand raise, which it also count downs who has raised. Well, that's easy to have a more equal participation. The blur background, just make sure that the person has the right focus, and you can point where you want to focus, so you don't have like all the clutter, reduce your cognitive load. I think there's one they are implementing, it's not out there yet, it's in preview, where you have like a sign language focus. So if person is using sign language, that will always be on the focus, because most of these things are rather simple, or let's say not really something really out of the world technologies. They are small features, collectively adds a lot of value. If you look at the general, like the group of Microsoft products with, for example, Copilot, Edge. Yeah, I'm not sure if this is good enough for someone to start using Edge, but you have these sort of features where it's describing images, and behind the scene it's using the Azure AI image recognition product. So with that, and that's also an API, so it's not like you can easily call it and build it in your own products as well. The voice chat, it's there, I think also with the ChatGPT it's there, but in all of the Copilot solutions, so the GitHub, the Copilot chat itself, you can just talk to it. Now for me, I was trying to make a mental note. In last 2 or 3 months, I interacted with like, I think 3 or 4 chatbots. So for an airline, for my insurance, I had one for the health insurance, one for the auto insurance. None of them had like a speaking feature. So I had to type the whole, I'm this is my complaint, these are my like address and all, so you can recognize me. And then after when somebody comes in, oh, can you give these details again? and then I have to type all that again. So actually I save the whatever I type in a notepad so that I can put it again and again. But that just makes it a bit more cumbersome to use. The summarized text, where you have this, let's say, a lot of information on a page. Instead of going through it, you can just get the gist of it, and if it's useful, then of course you can read it more. There's also a voice narration feature where and you can also choose like in which language and in which voice tone you want. So that's there, I think, in Windows, which can help you to read what's there on the screen. There's some things in the Word which is quite, let's say, the most popular one for documentation that's being used, a sort of an immersive reader feature. And this is also available as an API, an AI immersive reader, which is what it does, it sort of makes your content with like one line at a time. So especially for people with autism, the reading part of a big article becomes much more simplified. And then you have like a translation and read aloud, which is also there in a lot of other products. So this is good. This is good for the big tech, especially, for example, if you look at Microsoft, Google. I think they are doing a lot around accessibility. A lot of their products have these sort of features. But then I was thinking, if you look at a lot of, let's say, small to medium companies, this does not get translates well. And what I want to show is one of a use case of a text to speech type of thing. So the use case is basically I should have the ability to read any news article. I should be able to listen to it, so it should be able to convert from text to speech, and maybe even go a step further, that I should be able to listen it in the language that I prefer. So it's not only limited to the language that the article is written, but I can do some sort of translation as well and then listen to it. So what I try to do is something simple, but anyway, I'm using a couple of Azure AI services, so the speech service and the translator. I think if you combine them, they have more than 100 languages supported, and whatever text I get, try to see what language it's written. If it's same as the language that user wants, then it's good. Then you directly go to the conversion, and if not, then first convert it and then do the speech part. So let's see it's in action. I will go to the duplicate screen mode so that, oh, I already have that. Okay, yeah. So what I needed for this, I created a Azure Speech Service resource, and this is like a combined resource where you have a lot of these capabilities built. And if you focus on the speech part, then it has also the speech to text is there. There is actually a speech translation. There's not a sort of a speech to text to speech translation by default, so that's why I had to use the translator separately. And in my translator service, yeah, we can see like a small example here. So I don't want this in Spanish because that I also don't understand. I don't know, it's not working. Yeah, good on you. But what I wanted to show it here is whenever you use the API, you get sort of a score which tells you how well the software is able to recognize the language. So that is also something which you can build in your service, that based on the score, whether you actually support the translation or not, for example. Now to achieve that, I created a simple Spring Boot service where I have essentially three things happening. So whatever the input I'm getting with my text and the language, I'm trying to detect the language with one of the feature of this the speech resource I see is where you can also detect the language in it, and if that language is basically the same, let me show. So and basis of that, then I decide whether I need to convert it or not. That the translation's happening, and then I go back to conversion and then put it on the microphone. We can try to see it in action. I hope it works, because sometimes it just fails for no apparent reason. That's more of the live demo part, not with respect to the software. So I try to grab I had it open because I wanted to do it before, and then I saw the first 5-6 articles were all like maybe controversial subjects. So let me find one which is more not really have any controversial content in it. Let's see if so the service is running. And I can first give in NL.
En vapen zijn er sinds enige tijd ook nicotinesticks. Ze bevatten geen tabak, hebben veel verschillende smaakjes en gebruikers krijgen een schadelijke hoeveelheid nicotine binnen, zegt het Rijksinstituut voor Volksgezondheid en Milieu, RIVM, in een nieuw rapport.
Yeah, so whatever the text is, I make it short, it was a bit long, but if you look at the logs, it's sort of detecting the language is NL, also that's the input, so then there is no translation required for it. And this is like this detection and translation, the voice that you hear, that is coming from a list of voices that are available on the Azure AI portal. So there's like really a long list, especially for more popular languages, like really maybe less popular ones, then you have maybe 2 or 4 variations only, but for the popular ones there's a lot more variations. Now I can try to do the same thing in English.
There have also been nicotine sticks for some time now. They contain no tobacco, have many different flavors, and users ingest a harmful amount of nicotine.
It's almost like a German person trying to speak English, but there are more variations there, so that you can use. And if you look at the logs, then it detected it as English, does the translation, and then do that part. So what I try to show with this is building these type of tracks to speech things. It's well, nothing is simple, but it's really not that complicated, especially with everything being exposed as an API, so you can integrate it within your product, within your web, within your app very easily. What I did is I did a bit of a non-scientific research, so don't quote me on that, but I was just looking at all the popular news apps that are there in Netherlands. So I see, for example, I think on the web version, only the Telegraph has like a listening option. There's not translation that does not exist, but at least the listening is there for Telegraph, but none of others. On the app version, I see NOS, AD, Telegraph has a listening option, NU, NuPantanal, and RTL does not have that, and translation is not there. And what you see is Netherlands, if you just read any report from accessibility perspective, especially online accessibility, then it scores quite highly. So this is like the best examples that are out there. I think if you go to other countries, then it drops quite significantly. Yeah. You can also think of something like this, for example, for the chat bots, that you have not only a speech function, but like a translation build as well. So you can speak in whatever language you want, and then it translates to the language that your backend persons or persons supporting that chat get it. Yeah, so this we don't need. Yeah. It's good to always have that, but I had no idea how to play that one. It was going all over the place. Now, of course, in all this, there is a role for the government. Yeah, and maybe this is a bit of a oxymoron, helping hand from regulations or government. Do they always help? No, maybe not. But at least in this case, there is a role for government, because some of these things has to be, let's say, managed by the regulators to make sure that the companies and people who are building those products make it accessible for everyone. And for that we have, let's say, the EU Accessibility Act. It's actually coming into force just this month. In itself, it's not something really new. What it has done is it has sort of harmonized or make it uniform across EU all the accessibility rules. So before that you had like different rules for different countries. They were quite similar, but then there is always a small variations between them. So then if a company or a app or web is operating across, then you always have to take care whether it's going in Netherlands or whether it's in Germany, things like that. So that they have removed that barrier, and that makes it a lot more simpler. So it's enabling consistency. And then it also making compliance by law. What that means is if you're not compliant, there is a transition period, but then after that you can be fined, you can have all sorts of judicial process initiated against you. So that has, let's say, a motivation of its own. However, in itself, regulation, at least in my opinion, does not always really promote innovation in a way, right? So from regulatory perspective, you can easily make your web or app compliant, but whether it's accessible or not, they can be two different subjects. A good example will be, let's say, some articles with a lot of images in it. Some images are decorative, others are actually helping the article. You can run it with a sort of an accessibility checker. It says, oh, you have all these images, and they don't have a text description. Okay, add a click button, have some AI generate all the text description for it. But now if you read it with a screen reader, it's like a bit of a cluttered version. So you have all these decorative images which it's trying to describe, while that data is already present in the text. A lot of those reports around, for example, some sort of financial report, or in sports you have sometimes they show how the team has progressed to a particular extent. All that data is also there in the text, and then there is a graph or something. Now that graph is not relevant. You don't need to, if you are using a screen reader, you can skip that because you are getting that information from the text itself. But if you add it, then it's becoming more inaccessible. So that's why good regulation is there, but that should not be like the end point. There are some challenges, especially with AI, and it's not particularly with accessibility, but if you use AI in sort of any software completely, then there are few things you need to take into account, starting with inherent bias. So basically you are relying on how well that model is trained. So for example, text to speech, how well that model is trained on different languages to be able to make sound which is really understandable with people who speak that natively. And if not, then you are getting either a really sort of not really nice voice, or something which is making it even more inaccessible. The second one, it's more about designing anything for a set of users which are slightly different. Is we start thinking of ourselves as the user, and that happens, let's say, most of the time for other products as well, but here the effect is amplified. So we saw earlier roughly 20% population faces some sort of accessibility issue. That percentage is not reflected into your workforce that well. So that means a lot of people who are working on, we start to think, okay, if I cannot see, then how I need to perceive this content, and that's a bit it can be quite dangerous. So the best solution for that is to have people either in your workforce itself, or you really use the institutions which are doing sort of research work or working with people with disabilities, be part of your design process. And then the last one is the success criteria. So a statement which is, if you read, it's a lot of times mentioned, is nothing can be 100% accessible, because what happens is sometimes your accessibility needs conflicts with each other. If you have like a app on your mobile, you have limited space. Now if you automatically generate captions and show the captions on it, maybe the person has like even a smaller screen to look at the video, for example. maybe person with cognitive have a cognitive overload because there's so many things going on the screen. So you have to find what's the best let's say solution for that. I don't know. It is basically depends upon okay which are the user base you are targeting, whether you have sort of customization options so people can turn it on and off, that sort of things. With that's basically towards the end of my presentation. There are a couple of key takeaways I want to highlight. Best is to have accessibility part of your design process, not as an afterthought. So that means not like build everything and then okay think about what I need to do for accessibility. That makes it's too complicated, and it just then you are doing the things which is just required from the regulatory perspective. Have it built in, so really like be part of the process from the start itself, and also design from general accessibility. Most of the good accessible products you will see, they are not only helping them but they are helping the masses. Even the messaging apps or the text messages, they were designed for with accessibility back in 90s, but now everyone sort of uses it. So that's the important takeaway. Actually, with that, I'd like to say thank you to all. My name is Piyush. I am a chapter lead at ABN AMRO. Don't hold that against me if you have a complaint against ABN AMRO, but that's where I work. I'd like to thank you all for giving me your time. If you have any questions, I can try to answer that. And also, if you can rate the session, provide feedbacks on the app, I would really appreciate that. Thank you.